As much as I love 2042, I haven't covered it in a little while, and the reason is that Battlefield is in a bit of a weird state right now. We're starting the first week of Redux next week. We've just had the control mode added back this week, and the old content is being dredged up for players who missed it and players who are there for it to play again in a month intermission between Season 5 and Season 6. But does this rebranding of old content mean that we're getting to the end of the game's life cycle? Possibly, but I feel like there are some factors that must be brought into attention that haven't been brought before. Sure, we can look at past games' life cycles, but it's also worth mentioning that we have some evidence to show that perhaps 2042 could go on to, say, Season 8 or 9. So let's get straight into it. First of all, let's cover the semi-boring stuff. All these old modes are coming back, and what this screams to a lot of players, including myself when I first read the announcement to be honest, is that we're kind of on life support. However, I am inclined to slightly disagree with that statement once we've analysed it a bit further and realised that we are getting another full season of content after this. Something like this would be expectant of the game really falling off. I wouldn't expect content to pick back up after, an event like Redux, but it is. So in my brain, that makes me inclined to think that this is because of the DICE holiday in Sweden rather than the game having support, fully dropped. Some people argue that a map, a couple weapons, a vehicle, a gadget per season isn't really enough for a full season that they expect from a live service game. That's a completely different conversation entirely. What I think the main takeaway from this is that we're getting the same content amount as we always have done in future seasons, and Redux isn't, the falling off point for content. It's more of a lull, and it is one that sucks, but it does also give us time to go check out other games in the process, I guess. I mean, Starfield is coming out. A bunch of PSVR 2 games are coming out around this time, and I am kind of grateful the Battlefield is having a bit of a break. However, I would definitely prefer it if we got constant content, but I would rather have working conditions that are good for DICE employees and a long holiday for them than overworking them to the point, where they have to crunch. Anyway, aside from the content picking back up in full swing in Season 6, why else do I think the support is going to continue? Well, let's take a look at a bit of an abstract piece of evidence, and that is the story. We're in the second swing of the story of 2042 right now, and it seems like it's not really halting. For context, we had a story from Seasons 1 to 4 with a little bit of a journey with Oz, where you go from fighting with the US to betraying the US, and then that wrapped up neatly with the new NOPAT land being created by the super weapon storm at the end of Season 4. However, we just started a new story with Season 5, and we're pushing into this weird cybernetic enhanced kind of controlled soldiers sort of setting for Season 6, and it'd be weird to bring up this story beat if they intended to drop support afterwards. Why bring up this interesting concept that expands the lore and pushes the story forward past Season 5 if it's just gonna get dropped? I don't see the point. Reclaimed was a big turning point in, okay, we have content going forward. I feel like Season 6 is just a continuation, not an ending in terms of setting and in terms of story. We are just getting started with that, and you could say, well, it'll be taken on to the next game, which could be right. The game could full well have its content cut short, but I believe the plan now will be to continue for another 2 seasons, maybe to wrap up another 4-season story arc like there was for Season 1 to 4. I know some people don't really care about the story, but it's a factor that you must consider when taking a look at 2042 and how the seasons are structured in terms of story and how they're laid out. Because if we're following the same guidelines as Seasons 1 to 4, in terms of story, we're probably going to get a repeat. One of the pieces of evidence that is admittedly a bit weaker but should be brought up anyway is the files in the game. In terms of files, people have found references to up to, I think, Season 9 or 10. I'm not sure if we're going to be getting all of that, but the fact that they have these files in place could be an indicator that we're heading towards that direction. But of course, I don't want to draw too much attention to this one because it could be the same as Battlefield 5, where we had all of the Eastern Front stuff and it was all dropped. So that really doesn't prove much other than maybe DICE have these plans for the future, and ultimately the game's survival does not depend on them, it depends on EA's choice. So we'll see, but I am optimistic. But I also want to ask, what do you think DICE should do in terms of pushing this forward to the player base? I think they made a step in the right direction with their tweet directly after the Redux announcement that we are getting a full season of content coming still, and we will get details in the future. I think that was a very, very good play, and if we keep getting communication like that, then we should get an announcement for further content after Season 6, maybe at the launch of Season 6 or fairly soon afterwards. I believe that will happen, but I do understand why some players might believe that we are ending at Season 6. But essentially what I expect and ask of DICE, that they do communicate exactly what's going to happen going forward. However, I think it was a little bit telling that an entire Year 2 pass wasn't sold. An upgrade pack was sold for Year 2, but the actual Year 2 expansion as it is coming in the next year, starting from Season 5, going to potentially Season 8, there was no pass sold completely for that, meaning that they can sell you the Battle Pass each season if they want to, and they can pull out at any point. There's no legal obligation like there was for Year 1 for that full year of support to be delivered, so I guess if 2042 doesn't meet, the deadlines in terms of finances that, EA shareholders, investors, whatever it is, expect, then they could pull the plug. However, at this point, I feel like we will get a satisfying ending to 2042, and I'll be very disappointed if we're not. So there we have most of my arguments, and I do want to just throw in a couple predictions for Season 6. I think the new map is definitely that fake biodome sort of area that we saw in the player cards that has a fake sky. I feel like we're going to have different environments, maybe a nighttime section, an indoor section, a daytime section. In an ideal world, I'd love a forest, a snow part, a sand part, and all have these mixed in these different biodiverse domes that simulate different environments for soldiers to train in. But we could just be getting this nighttime area, which to be honest I'm fine with. Give us a good use for flashlights, and I guess thermals will be great there too. There's been a lot of talk of jets among the DICE team recently, so I could see us getting another jet, maybe in Season 6. But it would also confuse me because the new map seems to be indoors possibly, so who knows, maybe we'll get something else. But I think we are confirmed to get new vehicles, so we'll just have to wait and see what that is. In terms of gadgets and weapons, I have no clue. In terms of weapons, I'd love to see an AUG added to the game. Maybe another shotgun. I feel like shotguns are kind of underappreciated. And I'll always take a new sidearm as well, because the more the better. Of course, we know that no new specialist is coming. That has been the case for a couple seasons now. But yeah, please do let me know what you think, where we're going, what you expect from DICE in terms of, the longevity of 2042. For me, I'm hoping for a long life cycle, but I do understand that some people are skeptical from Battlefield 5, as I am too. But I do have faith that we will be carried for at least another couple of seasons, because the DICE team deserve to stretch their legs as much as possible with this title before we move on to the next one. We have no idea what stage the next Battlefield game is actually in terms of production right now. I'm assuming it's still in heavy pre-production, but we'll just have to see and wait for any leaks or news on that, which I'm sure will be a very exciting time, as it always is and was for 2042. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.